Assalamu alaikum. So dear students, today we are going to talk about posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary, it is a part of a pituitary gland which is located posterior to the anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is located interior and posterior pituitary is located posterior. That's why their names are given. So important to note that posterior pituitary is derived from central nervous system, as we have discussed shortly before. So that's why posterior pituitary is also called as a neurohypophysis. Neurohypophysis. So posterior pituitary is derived from posterior pituitary is derived from CNS, and that's why it is also called as neurohypophysis. So it is derived from central nervous system, that's why it is also called as a neurohypophysis. This is the second name for a posterior pituitary. Now posterior pituitary secretes two hormones. Posterior pituitary secretes two hormones. What are these hormones? One hormone is antidiuretic hormone, which is also called as a vasopressin. Vasopressin, it is the second name of anterior pituitary ADH, antidiuretic hormone. The second hormone that is secreted by posterior pituitary is oxytocin. So posterior pituitary secrete these two hormones. So these are the two hormones that are produced or secreted by posterior pituitary. They are produced in the hypothalamus but secreted by posterior pituitary. So actually these two hormones are produced in a hypothalamus. These are produced in hypothalamus. So these two hormones are secreted by posterior pituitary, but these are produced by hypothalamus. Let's draw a diagram how hypothalamus produces these two hormones. So now this is hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus. In hypothalamus, we have two nuclei. Let's discuss these two nuclei with respect to posterior pituitary. One is paraventricular nucleus. This is paraventricular nucleus, and another is supraoptic nucleus. This is supraoptic nucleus, and this is paraventricular nucleus, and this is supraoptic nucleus. This supraoptic nucleus produces ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Paraventricular nucleus produces oxytocin. Okay, now from these nuclei, these hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, go to posterior pituitary, and these hormones go to axon, because we know that posterior pituitary is derived from central nervous system. So the connection between hypothalamus and posterior pituitary is by central nervous system, by neurons, by axons. So from paraventricular nucleus, axon fibers goes to the pituitary, posterior pituitary, and also from supraoptic nucleus, axon fibers go to posterior pituitary. So these are the axon fibers that are going to the posterior pituitary. These fibers are called neurophycins. These fibers are called neurophycins. Phycins. So neurophycins are axon fibers that carry oxytocin and ADH release signal action potential from the hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary. Now, this is the region of a posterior pituitary. Here these have vesicles at their end in the posterior pituitary. These have stored oxytocin and store antidiuretic hormone. Now, whenever there is a need of oxytocin or antidiuretic hormone, then these are produced. Antidiuretic hormone or oxytocin are produced whenever they are required. So, this is posterior pituitary and this is the blood circulation in the posterior pituitary. So, according to any condition, whenever antidiuretic hormone is required or oxytocin is required, they are secreted into the circulation, which then they go to the target cell and perform the action, which we will discuss now. Now, one thing to be noted that 10% oxytocin is also produced by supraoptic nucleus. Normally, supraoptic nucleus produce antidiuretic hormone, but it is important to note that 10% oxytocin is also produced by supraoptic nucleus. The same is also the case with antidiuretic hormone. Normally, we know that antidiuretic hormone is produced by supraoptic nucleus. Okay, 90%. But 10% antidiuretic hormone is produced by paraventricular nucleus also. So 10% ADH is also produced by paraventricular nucleus. So it is not that 100% antidiuretic hormone is produced by supraoptic nucleus and 100% oxytocin is produced by paraventricular nucleus. No, 10% and 90% case occur here. Now, antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin both have 9 amino acids, and out of these 9 amino acids, 6 amino acids are same. So structurally they are most of the percentage of these hormones are structurally same, but functionally they are different hormones totally. So oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone each have 9 amino acids. Okay, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone both have 9 amino acids. Oxytocin have how much amino acid? 9. Antidiuretic hormone have how much amino acid? 9. Out of these 9 amino acids, 6 amino acids are same. 6 amino acids of ADH and oxytocin are same to each other. So they are structurally resemblance. They resemble to each other structurally to a certain extent, but no functional resemblance. They do not have same function. Functionally, though, they are totally different, but structurally they are same up to some extent. So this is another point about oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Now let's discuss each hormone separately. Let's first of all discuss antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone is produced by posterior pituitary. We are going now to discuss. So from where does this is produced? Actually, let's draw a diagram. This is hypothalamus. First of all, we have to draw, this is hypothalamus This is third ventricle. Here we have a structure which is called as a subformical organ. This is subformical organ. Subformical organ. This is subformical organ. Here we have another structure, this one, which is below the subformical organ, which is called as organum vasculosum. These are the two structures. Here we have a nucleus. Here we have a nucleus which is known as a medial preoptic nucleus. This is medial preoptic nucleus. Okay. Here we have paraventricular nucleus and here we have supraoptic nucleus. This is paraventricular nucleus. This is supraoptic nucleus. Okay. Now, this is hypothalamus. This is organum vasculosum. This is subformical organ and this is a medial preoptic nucleus. Okay. And now we know that these are connected to the posterior pituitary. Okay, now let's discuss that if we have a problem in which antidiuretic hormone is going to release, so in what conditions we will have increase antidiuretic hormone to be increased. So it is produced by supraoptic nucleus and it is sent to the posterior pituitary. Supraoptic nucleus produces antidiuretic hormone and send it to the posterior pituitary. Okay. Now we discussed that in the anterior wall of a third ventricle, this is a hypothalamus, this is anterior wall. In the anterior wall of the third ventricle are present subformical organ and organum vasculosum. This region is called as a lamina terminalis. This region is called as a lamina terminalis. What is this called as a lamina terminalis? This region is called lamina terminalis, consisting of a subformical organ and organum vasculosum. Now, in the lamina terminalis, blood-brain barrier is broken. That any change in the blood concentration, change in the any substance of blood concentration is detected by here. Mostly here we will going to discuss antidiuretic hormone. So, these cells, these structures have cells which are also called as a Asthma receptors. Okay, here we have cells which are called as asthma receptors. What does I mean? This is subformical organ, this is organum vasculosum. Here cells are present which are called as asthma receptors. Okay, now here we know that a blood-brain barrier is broken. So if there is any change in the ADH in the blood, ADH concentration in the blood, these asthma receptors, asthma mean osmolarity, receptor mean receptor, that they detect the change of osmolarity. Whenever there is change in the antidiuretic hormone, these are sensed by asthma receptor cell of this region. Okay. So normally we know that osmolarity of blood is about 2 to 300 milliosmol per meter. So blood normal blood osmolarity is approximately, we will take here 300 milliosmol per liter. Normal osmolarity of the blood is 300 milliosmol per liter, but if osmolarity decreases, it means blood increases water concentration. Blood water concentration is increased. And whenever osmolarity decreases, it means that water concentration of the blood has increased. Okay. Now let's take a condition when osmolarity is increased. Whenever osmolarity is increased, it means that water content of the blood plasma is decreased. So what will happen, that this region will be activated. Lamina terminalis region will be activated. So what we will say, that this nucleus will be activated whenever there is a increase in osmolarity. Whenever there is increase in osmolarity, water content of the blood will have decreased. This increase in osmolarity and decrease water contact is detected by lamina terminalis. This lamina terminalis region, which consists of a subformical organ and organum musculosum, activate a nucleus which is called as a medial preoptic nucleus. So medial preoptic nucleus is activated. Okay, when osmolarity is high, water level will be low, solute level will be high. No, so now blood-brain barrier is here broken. Thus, this increased osmolarity is sent by osmoreceptor cell which are present in lamina terminalis region. These cells give information to the medial preoptic nucleus, which activate supraoptic nucleus here. Supraoptic nucleus as well as a paraventricular nucleus, which also we know that produce 10% ADH, 90% by this, 10% by this. Now, these nuclei then send active action potential to the posterior pituitary. We know that posterior pituitary and hypothalamus is connected by axons. So action potential go from these nuclei, supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus, to the posterior pituitary, which tell them to release antidiuretic hormone. Thus, antidiuretic hormone is released. This antidiuretic hormone concentration in the blood increases, which go to the kidney and increases the permeability of a distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct and increase blood water content and maintain the osmolarity, that decreases the osmolarity up to normal level. We will discuss action of antidiuretic hormone on the kidney later. So this is one condition. Another condition, when blood pressure is low. When blood pressure is low, here this may be due to decrease water content of the blood or blood plasma. So here also we will try to increase water level of the blood. We will also try to increase the release of antidiuretic hormone. So when blood pressure is low, it may be due to hemorrhage, trauma, or any other reason due to which blood loss occur and volume of the blood decreases and blood pressure decreases. Now carotid sinus, which sense the blood pressure, these are activated. So carotid sinus senses this low blood pressure and send these information to center in the medulla. Okay, what happens whenever blood pressure is low? This low blood pressure is sensed by carotid sinus. What? Carotid sinus. Sense decrease blood pressure. When carotid sinus sense decreased blood pressure, these carotid sinuses send information to the medulla. Okay. So whenever information are sent to the medulla, from medulla, then information go to the supraoptic and paraventricular nucleus, and when information reaches there, supraoptic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus are activated, which are then the same mechanism, by the same mechanism activate posterior pituitary to release antidiuretic hormone, which go to the kidney and increase permeability of a distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct and increase the water content of the blood. Okay, this is the second condition in which blood volume, blood pressure is decreased and antidiuretic hormone is released. The second condition is a decreased blood volume. Okay, this is also the same mechanism. Whenever there is a decreased blood volume, information are sent from the heart to the medulla. Okay, here remember, from heart information of a decreased blood volume are sent to the medulla, and then the same mechanism occur. Another thing, nausea and vomiting. And vomiting also cause the release of a antidiuretic hormone, because in these cases we also see that blood volume is decreases. So these are some conditions in which blood volume decreases. Let's draw a diagram here to clarify that how does this occur. So we will have a diagrammatical representation of these things. This is, we have hypothalamus. This is another diagram. This is another, and this is a medial preoptic nucleus. This is subformical organ, and this is a organum vasculosum. I cannot write these names because I have little space here. Okay, this is this is posterior pituitary. I am removing anterior pituitary. This is posterior pituitary. Okay. Now here we know that this is this is midbrain, pons and medulla. This is medulla. Okay, this region is medulla. Okay, so whenever there is a decrease of blood volume, there is decreased blood pressure, and there is a nausea vomiting in which blood volume decreases, information go to this place and then activate the posterior pituitary. So this is, let's, carotid sinus. Carotid sinus send information of a decreased blood pressure to medulla. Medulla receive this information and send to which part of the brain? It sent this information to the medial preoptic nucleus. Then medial preoptic nucleus activate paraventricular nucleus and supraoptic nucleus, which then send action potential to the posterior pituitary and activate the release of antidiuretic hormone. Here blood vessel should be drawn. Okay. Whenever there is decrease blood volume, heart send this information to the medulla. Medulla by the same mechanism, by the same pathway, activate the medial preoptic nucleus. So these are the certain conditions in which ADH is released. Now we are going to discuss function of the antidiuretic hormone. There are two main functions of antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone. Number one is water reabsorption in kidney or from kidney to blood vessels. Number two is vasoconstriction. These are the two functions of the antidiuretic hormone. Now, how antidiuretic hormone act on the kidney to perform the process of reabsorption. Okay, we will discuss the mechanism of this thing, how antidiuretic hormone act on the kidney and increase the reabsorption of water. So number one function is reabsorption in the kidney. So ADH act on distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. Mainly and mostly these two parts are under the action of antidiuretic hormone. Now draw mechanism. Here we will draw. We have collecting duct or distal convoluted tubular cell. This is lumen of the collecting duct. This is a cell of collecting duct. This is a cell of collecting duct, and this is the blood vessel which will bring antidiuretic hormone from the brain, from the posterior pituitary to the kidney. Now whenever antidiuretic hormone come here, it will activate receptors on the basal side of the lining cell of the collecting duct. These receptors are called as V2 receptors. These are the V2 receptors. V2 receptor. V mean vasopressin 2 receptors. Okay, these receptors will activate G stimulatory protein, G proteins. Okay, when G protein are activated, these will activate adenylyl cyclase. Okay, adenylyl cyclase will convert ATP into cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP will cause the phosphorylation of protein kinase A. Okay, and this mechanism will occurring here. After this, what will happen that phosphorylation of a special vesicular proteins will occur. Vesicular proteins will be formed. Vesicular proteins will be formed. Mean some proteins